What is good? So you may notice about this video that well, the recording style is a little different. That's because I just decided that I was going to use a screen recorder app and do these videos on my phone, as opposed to doing them on my Xbox TV screen. Because, well, better quality, and there's not going to be as much ads, so there's that. So yeah, we're just going to be doing videos like this from now on, most likely. So, if you saw my last video, which was how I would vote in every U.S. presidential election, that was all the elections from 2020 to 1896. And this time, we are going to be doing how I would vote in every U.S. presidential election from 1789 up to 1892. So last time we did it from 2020 down to 1896. Now we're doing it from 1789 up to 1892. So this is going to be, we're going to go through the rest of the elections in this video, starting with, of course, the election of 1789, the first ever presidential election, also the only election to take place across 2 years, 1788 and 1789. So the only real candidate choice here is, of course, George Washington. But before, like in these really, really early elections, you also had to vote for a vice president, and electors also had to pick a vice president. So I would go with George Washington, of course, for president, because he was the only presidential candidate. And for vice president, I would go with John Adams, because he was the only real option for vice president as well. Same with 1792. Of course, George Washington for president, yet again. And I'll go with John Adams for vice president again. Because George Clinton, anti-federalist with a federalist president, doesn't sit right with me. Alright, 1796, John Adams versus Jefferson. So, in the election of 1796, of course, John Adams had a pretty good run as vice president under George Washington. So, in the election of 1796, I think I would vote for John Adams, just because of his reputation as vice president under George Washington. Then we get to 1800. After seeing what John Adams had done, of course, Alien and Sedition Acts, not great, not great at all. And other things, and because of those things, I would vote for Jefferson this time around, and Aaron Burr for vice president. Aaron Burr, as you can see, actually tied with Thomas Jefferson, so the House had to vote on the election, and they chose Thomas Jefferson to be the president. Alright, 1804. The Louisiana Purchase has happened. Louisiana Purchase was a little controversial, because people questioned the legitimacy of that purchase, and if it was constitutional or not, so there's that. He also ratified the 12th Amendment, so there's that. So, would I go Thomas Jefferson re-election? Yes. Yes, I would. Because at this time, I don't think it would sit right with me to vote for a Federalist, Charles Pinckney. So, I'd vote Thomas Jefferson. 1808, James Madison versus Pinckney yet again. And George Clinton is also there. I think I'd go with James Madison, just because, well, not voting Federalist. And George Clinton, it's pretty obvious that he's not going anywhere, so why waste a vote on him? So, yeah, James Madison for 1808. Alright, 1812. War of 1812 has just broken out, and DeWitt Clinton, a Federalist candidate, is running against him. So, this war, the War of 1812, is controversial. Because he didn't really start the war, but he also started the war. So, do I want to... You know what? This is one of the only elections, besides voting for Adams and Washington, where I'll vote for a Federalist. In 1812, I would choose DeWitt Clinton for president. All right, 1816. And also, something that I mentioned in the last video, but I think I should just mention in this video anyway, is that I cannot just skip these elections. This is if I was a voter at this time and I was forcing myself to pick, then I have to. So I'm having to actually pick between the candidates. That just makes it more interesting, because if that rule wasn't in place, then I would just be skipping 90% of the elections anyway. All right, 1816. James Monroe is running. James Monroe is a very likable Democratic Republican, and I really also like the appeal of Rufus King, though. But because Monroe, just for the sole reason that Monroe has more support in the South, and I would be living in Tennessee at this time, I would choose James Monroe. All right, 1820. Monroe is my only real option, so Monroe. All right, 1824. Andrew Jackson versus John Quincy Adams versus William Howard Crawford versus Henry Clay. In this election, now this is before the corrupt bargain, so Henry Clay. I would do Henry Clay. John Quincy Adams, no. Andrew Jackson, definitely not. William Crawford doesn't sit right with me, so yeah, Henry Clay. And Henry Clay would disappoint me a little bit with the corrupt bargain, which let John Quincy Adams become the president. But, you know, it's whatever. At least Jackson didn't win this time around. But in 1828, Andrew Jackson would win, beating John Quincy Adams. Speaking of, how I'd vote in this election. Well, see, here's the thing. Again, Jackson, he's a Tennessean. He is from Tennessee, so that inclines me to vote for him a little bit. Maybe I don't like his rhetoric a little bit, but again, this is from the perspective of someone in 1828. We don't know about the Trail of Tears yet. And because John Quincy Adams hasn't really done anything productive in the presidency seat, we're going to try and switch him out with this Andrew Jackson guy. So I would choose Andrew Jackson in 1828. But then 1832. Not voting for Jackson for re-election. He was worse than I could have thought. Alright. So, John Floyd has no real chance. William Wirt has no real chance. Only other option here is Henry Clay. In spite of the corrupt bargain, I think I would still go Henry Clay, because he does still have some very good National Republican ideas. So, there's that. 1836. Alright. Martin Van Buren, who was the vice president under Jackson, who is at this time would be currently kickstarting the Trail of Tears. I believe this was right around the time when the Trail of Tears happened. So, don't think I'm voting Van Buren. I really like this William Henry Harrison guy, though. So, 1836, I think I would vote for William Henry Harrison. Alright. On to 1840. Oh boy. Well, I just gave my opinion on this. I'm voting William Henry Harrison. Yet again, especially after seeing Martin Van Buren carry out the Trail of Tears. I knew he was in support of it before, but now he's actually carrying it out. So, yeah, no. William Henry Harrison. Alright, 1844. Polk versus Clay. Now, tension with the British at this time makes me believe that America is about to enter a war with the British. And Polk, I just believe, is better in terms of foreign policy. I think he will keep us out of a war with Britain. And he did keep us out of a war with Britain. But you want to know what he started a war with? Mexico. Now in 1844, we don't know about that. In 1844, all we know is that the British want the Washington, Oregon, and Idaho territories, and that we want to stop them from obtaining those territories at all costs. And Polk was able to negotiate something with that, but again, as stated before, he started a war with Mexico. But in 1844, I don't know that, so I would vote for Polk over Clay. All right, 1848, here we are. Zachary Taylor versus Lewis Cass. And Martin Van Buren of the Free Soil Party, but no. Okay. Zachary Taylor, just because of his reputation as a war hero in the, was it the War of 1812? I know it was either the War of 1812 or the Mexican-American War. But a war hero in one of those wars. It may have been both, actually. I'd vote for Zachary Taylor in this election. 1852, Zachary Taylor is dead. Now our two choices are Franklin Pierce and Winfield Scott. And John P. Hale of the Free Soil Party. I think I'd go Winfield Scott this time around. Pierce, he is way too in support of states' rights and way too soft on the issue of slavery for me to actually cast a vote for Pierce. But I will cast a vote for Winfield Scott because he's a little stronger on that issue. 1856. Okay. Millard Fillmore, former President Fillmore. He didn't really do much. Would I vote for him? Maybe. Honestly, maybe. I may cast a vote for Millard Fillmore just because I don't like these other two options. Buchanan and Fremont, are you kidding me? Alright, since I at least know what Millard Fillmore is about, since Millard Fillmore didn't really have any big gaffes or mistakes as president, Millard Fillmore. Because I don't like Buchanan and I definitely don't like Fremont. So, Millard Fillmore, 1856. 1860, my choice here is very easy. Abraham Lincoln over all of these guys. Abraham Lincoln has a very noble cause wanting to end slavery. Or even simply preventing its spread, because that's what he was saying at this time. Even preventing its spread is amazing. So, Lincoln, 1860. And again in 1864, I would still vote for, I couldn't vote in this election because, look, Tennessee is part of the Confederate States of America. But if I could have voted in this election, even at this time, if I was living at this time, I still wouldn't have been able to vote in this election because, again, Confederacy. But between Abraham Lincoln and George B. McClellan, we've already established that McClellan is incompetent, so Abraham Lincoln, want him to finish the job that he started. Alright, 1868, Ulysses S. Grant versus Horatio Seymour. Grant, because I believe Grant, first off, Grant is really harsh on the KKK, which I like. Seymour, after the stunt that the South just pulled, I don't know if I want to elect another Democrat for a while, so let's give this Grant guy a shot. 1872, oh no, corruption is happening. But the Democratic Party is split between so many different candidates, so my only real option is Ulysses S. Grant. So I will go Ulysses S. Grant for re-election. Reluctantly, but I will. Also because of the KKK Act, which I liked. 1876, Hayes versus Tilden. Because Hayes, I don't know how I feel about Hayes. I do know, though, that Tilden is actually a very respectable Democrat at this time. And Hayes is not a very respectable Republican. So I would vote Samuel Tilden. And I would be very pissed whenever Tilden loses the election by one electoral vote. Alright, 1880, Garfield versus Hancock. I think I'd go for Garfield at this time. Go for Garfield. I'd just be happy that Rutherford Hayes isn't running for another term. Alright, 1884, Cleveland versus James G. Blaine. James G. Blaine has a reputation of being a very corrupt individual, so I'm picking Grover Cleveland. 1888, Benjamin Harrison versus Grover Cleveland. Benjamin Harrison also has a reputation of being very corrupt, so Cleveland. And 1892, last election, James B. Weaver versus Benjamin Harrison versus Grover Cleveland. Benjamin Harrison has only proven his corruptionness, so I'm picking Grover Cleveland, definitely this time. So there's that, and that is actually going to wrap it up for this video. Hope you guys really enjoyed this video, more than you enjoyed the last video at least, because it seems like a lot of people really didn't enjoy that video. But yeah, I thought this was just really cool. After this, I'm going to be primarily focusing more towards gaming videos, so there's that. But I will see you guys in the next video.